What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. All right, so thank you guys for coming back. And today we got the Pathfinder back in the garage again. And we're gonna be actually installing the pass-through lighting on this vehicle. Now, the pass-through lighting, for all of you who don't know, is basically a small little light that basically kind of illuminates the bottom part of where your shifter's at. So it's the pass-through area between the passenger and the driver's side. There is, if you reach up in there, there is a small hole in there. This kind of just does nothing, but there is an accessory or a light available for that. Unfortunately, it is not an LED light or a 6K LED light, I should say. It is an LED light, but it's not a 6K. So it's kind of like the amberish color. It's actually the same color if you look underneath your radio where your wireless charger's at, or just the little area right underneath the radio. It's the same type of light that goes underneath that basically kind of gives the bottom part of that pass-through some illumination, some lighting to see what's in the bottom, especially when you're driving at a dark road at night or something like that. Now, some people may like that, some people may not find a purpose for it. The part itself is not expensive. So it's like about 50 to 60 bucks, something like that for the actual kit. Now, if you have the dealer install it, yes, they're gonna charge you maybe about an hour and a half to 2 hours labor, depending on the dealer you're going to. That's between $150 to $180 per labor hour. But this is a very simple install. I'm gonna show you guys how to do it. And even though it comes with instructions, some people may seem the instructions are a little bit too vague and may not be comfortable by doing this, but I'm gonna show you guys exactly how to do this and how easy it is to actually install this light. So let's go ahead and get this installation started right away. So start off, let's see what kind of tools we're gonna need for the installation. We're gonna need a Phillips screwdriver, a trim removal tool, a knife, a step drill or an angle drill, and some electrical tape. That is it. Now, what comes in the box in this kit is going to be your wiring harness, all the accessories needed to mount and to be able to do the connections with the accessory cables and the actual light. All right, so real quick before we start this installation, I want to warn you guys with a couple things. Number one, make sure you disconnect the negative cable from the battery so you have no power supply. Because if you're messing with some kind of electrical here, you don't want to short something out and have an issue later. Number two, if it's cold, I'm right now in the middle of winter, it's about 18 degrees outside. I had to turn my heater on in the garage and keep the car in here for a good, 45 minutes while I warmed up in here, because all you're dealing with is plastic pieces and plastic trim. And when it comes to cold weather, plastic trim can get very brittle and break. So just make sure if it's in the cold weather to try to heat it up. Get a heat gun, a blow dryer, heat up the plastic a little bit just to get it warmed up. Or if you have a heated garage, more power to you. So those are the things I want you to keep in mind when we're doing this installation. So that's enough talking. Let's go ahead and get this started. All right, so first we're gonna start by removing the floor mat. Make sure that you get the floor mat out, make sure that the seat is as far as back as you can. That'll give you some room to work with. Then we're gonna remove the kick plate. Do that by sticking your fingers between this and the carpeting and pulling straight up. Make sure you pull straight up on this and not any other way, because if not, you will break the plastic clips that are on there and it won't go in properly. Next, we're gonna go to the back of the center console. You're gonna pull this straight out from underneath. There's no screws on here. Now on the opposite side, you have a small screw all the way tucked in behind the glove box. That screw comes out by hand. Once you get the screw completely out, you go ahead and take this panel and pull it straight out. Once that is done, you'll see a big wad of wire that's behind some tape here. You're gonna go ahead and basically cut that off. The connector we're looking for that we're gonna be working with is behind that. Make sure you just cut the tape right off of this. Be careful not to cut any wiring. And just kind of leave it hanging down just to work on it when we're done running the wiring through this car. Next, we're gonna go to our center console. You're gonna go ahead and remove all the little inserts basically in your cup holder, on the small little space in here, and of course in the phone charger or a little storage space. You're gonna see two screws in there, they're both Phillips. Take those screws off and put them to the side. And now you're gonna take your trim tool. Once you get the trim tool, pop them right in here where basically the cup holders divide. Put it right in there and turn it slightly. You will hear a popping noise. That'll be them releasing. Once you do that, the same to the other side, and you kind of work your way around it. Be careful when you're removing this. They're all plastic clips. You don't want to break any of these. Just kind of keep working it all the way around until everything becomes loose. It'll also help if you open up your center console just to kind of give you some more room to work with. Once you get the back up, you should be able to just kind of pop the front here, right in this little area here. Now that you remove the center console, go ahead and just unplug the 3 connectors behind it. They're very simple, they've got little small tabs in there. Once you do that, go ahead and lift the cup holder straight up. It's only held on by 1 clip. You're gonna see this small little hole. That's where our light's gonna go. What we're gonna do is, you see these little wings here? We're gonna go ahead and trim those off. So you can do that with using a knife, or like I said, if you have a step drill or step drill bit, go ahead and use the step drill bit and kind of give it a quick once. Maybe you pull the trigger once and that should be enough. But you wanna make sure it's nice and round and clean around that area where you're gonna be putting the light in. And this is how it should look after you're done with it. It should be nice and clean, and again, that's where your light's gonna go in. Now we're gonna take our wiring, pretty much this is our connector, and this big white zip tie. Now with the zip tie, what you wanna do first thing is cut off the locking tab, or the locking back end of the zip tie. So this big thick piece here, we're gonna cut this piece off. And then with your wiring harness, you're gonna go ahead and take the parts that are basically where the wiring is exposed and tape that around it. You're gonna insert right next to the wiring harness and run it all the way through. Just keep pushing in there and you should see it pop off at the bottom. So you should be able to basically, once you get it further enough in there, go on the side of where you remove this trim panel and you'll see it pop in right there. Go ahead, grab it from there and pull it all the way out. And that will bring the wiring. And again, the wiring part you want to bring out is the 2 exposed, the negative, or I should say the black and the white cable should come right out of this end. Now just keep pulling it all the way through. What you should be left with is basically underneath your center console. You should just be left with the connector, a small part of it, and then you should be able to plug in the light. Just plug the 2 in, and now you have your light plugged in and your connector. You're gonna take some of the foam tape and wrap it around the actual connector, or both connectors, just to insulate everything. Once that is done, go ahead and tuck in the wiring as far as back as you can. You want to pretty much have where the actual light itself, which is this end piece here, is right above the small hole. Once you do that, you're gonna go ahead and pretty much you're gonna put the light in its little hole. Now it's gonna be held in there by a small little clip, which is a little trim piece. It comes with the kit. You'll be able to see it. There's a little foam insulator that comes with it. You're gonna go from underneath and from the top. So you're gonna hold the light on top of it and then basically clip in that small piece right onto the bottom of it. You'll hear a click and it's all locked into place. Then you're gonna take some more foam tape and put it right over the light just to kind of help it hold in place right in there. This is what it should look like once you're done with it. Right, and now we don't need to be in here anymore, so let's go ahead and put everything back together. Just make sure that you put all the connectors on there, plug them all back in, and make sure when you're putting this back down, go ahead and everything clips in and clicks in properly. Do not force anything in.
All right, so now that we got everything routed and everything, it's now time to route the entire harness pretty much per the instructions. It says underneath the floor. Now, so you guys can route it any way you want. If it's easier for you, route it above the dash, there's zip ties with this, zip tie it to the top part of the dash, however you wanna do it. I'm gonna route it underneath the floor, but not all the way underneath the floor. I'm gonna show you exactly what I'm gonna do. So now that the harness is to this point here, we have to route it all the way to make sure that it gets to this connector here. Here's the ends, but we have all this harness, and under here, there's not much really room to put it into. I mean, you could tape it up there or zip tie it up there, however you wanna do it. What the instructions say is basically running it straight down through here, under the floor, pulling the floor back, which all you gotta do is just kind of pull everything back. But underneath here, you have the styrofoam, which is also an insulator. Now, what I am gonna do, I will be running it through the floor, but I'm not gonna be lifting the styrofoam. I'm gonna be honest with you, you won't feel the harness. It's not like gonna feel anything or see it at all. Once I put the cover back on and everything goes back in the spot, you won't see it. On top of that, if let's just say you ever get water in the car for some reason, and the water has to come up. The water will be at the bottom tray of basically the actual body of the car. The styrofoam might save that. I don't want any wiring, even though it's all insulated and everything else, be in contact with water. So I'm gonna basically run it right through here, bring it down this carpet area here, bring it down across here to where the connector's at, and call it a day. That's pretty much the end of that, how I'm gonna route this one. I was gonna route it underneath this, but then you would have to somehow come back around this way here and along the side here. And I didn't wanna go through all that. I'm just basically gonna do it the easiest way. It does say route it through the floor. I am not gonna be removing these styrofoam panels out of there. So basically I'm just gonna route it over the styrofoam panels. And they do give you this 3M tape. It's really sticky that you can stick that panel to so it doesn't move anywhere or anything like that. Basically, you're gonna be sticking these to this as it comes around here, down here, and then kind of just stick it in certain spots underneath the floor, of course. And it should be all good. Now, again, you guys could route it any other way you want. You don't really have to go and route it the way they say, like pull everything out of the floor. I'm not gonna do that, so, and it's still gonna work perfectly fine. All right, so here's what I did. I actually thought about it after I did the last part. What I actually did is, instead of routing it through the floor, like I said, I was over these styrofoam plates, because then I'm like, I don't want water to get into them, but then people step on this. Now, even though this is gonna have all season mats, like either WeatherTech or the Nissan ones, it could get wet. Somebody spills something in here, this gets wet, this gets soaked in, even though there's a rubber membrane here, and I could have issues. So what I did is actually, I put some tape here, ran it through here, and it's going right through there, if you guys can see it. Trying to get you the best shot as possible here. But that's where the tape is at. It's holding it in right through here. Comes down behind the wiring harness here and comes up on the other side of it. So now I'm gonna put this back, and all we gotta do is basically do the connections and then hide the wires, and we're all good to go. So the connection here are simple, and this is the easiest way to actually do this. You're gonna take your black and white wire, of course, it's for the light that goes from the light to the end of this, and you're gonna connect it to the black and white wire in the actual wiring harness that's on the car. Now to do this, it's very simple. Nissan gives you these little posi tabs. Now what that is basically a little cylinder that basically has the red and gray side. You're gonna take your wiring that's on the car, so like in this situation I'm doing here, as I'm fanning out the wiring, let's get all little hairs out. I'm gonna unscrew the red side. That is your insert side. The gray side is your tap side. So once you unscrew that side, you're gonna insert the wire on the cap part that you took off, that you unscrewed. Just need this small cap and insert the wire right inside of here. Once you do that, again, make sure they're kind of fanned out a little bit here. Not too much, you wanna make sure it inserts right in here. And then go ahead and tighten up and screw back in the part you took out. Now that'll basically wrap the wire around the post that's inside of there. And you're gonna do the same thing for the opposite side, which is the black one. So this is pretty much what you got left. You have your positive and negative, and you got all the connectors ready to go. So you got your white and your black, and you're gonna find the white and the black that's connected to this terminal right in here. Separate all the other wires and make sure the white and the black ones are the only ones sticking out. Then what you're gonna do is you're going to take the gray side, the little gray cap on the actual thing, and you're gonna see it in there. It looks like a little needle. It's basically, that's your tap. It's gonna pierce into the wiring. So now you're gonna take the little gray cap you took off, and it's got a little slit in there. You're gonna go ahead and insert the wiring in that slit, and then take the top part, or the other opposite side where the needle is at, and go ahead and just twist it in its place. That'll basically puncture the wiring and pierce it and give you a connection. After you're done with the connections, go ahead and take some electrical tape and wrap the posi taps with the electrical tape on there, and take some foam tape as well and kind of wrap the entire thing with the foam tape. That'll just give it a nice clean look. On top of that, it'll keep it insulated from anything kind of getting to it. Once you're done with all that, just take some zip ties and zip tie everything to the current harness in there, just to keep it all nice and neat in one spot.
All right, so everything's all set up. I got the wiring ran, everything looks good. I put the first panel in. One last thing. If you look down in here, you're gonna see the little plastic clip in there. That clip is part of this panel here. It goes right in this slot right there. That always seems to stay in there. Now you can use one of these panel poppers. It's got a little like fork right there, specifically for that. Or you can try to use a cutter or a dike to try to get that out of there. Now, I will have a link at the bottom to all the tools I used here today. So you just click on that, and the kit that comes for the panel removers, that's not that expensive, will actually come with one of these. So should be able to pop that out just by using that. All right, everyone, so it's all set and ready. We are done with the installation. It was not that hard. Again, quick tips real quick so you don't run into issues. Remember, before running that cable through the center console, cut off the top piece or the locking piece of the white zip tie. If not, that will get stuck inside of the dash and you'll have to remove additional panels. Other than that, it's pretty self-explanatory, and I'm gonna leave you guys with some shots of how everything looks at the end. I'm gonna turn off the lights and give you some shots of how it looks at the end of the night. Again, it's not a bright light because you don't want a bright light. You don't wanna be distracted when you're driving, but it's a subtle light. And actually, I thought it was gonna be like a yellowish color. It's still actually a nice kind of white color. So I'm gonna give you some shots. I hope you guys did like the video. If you did, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to like the video as well. And I'll see you guys on my next video. Peace.